The young widow's dark secret, can she brace for the rancher's daughter's shocking request? The air hung heavy in the little town of Maple Creek, thick with the scent of impending storm clouds. Whispers curled through the wind, carrying tales of the young widow who resided in the old, creaking house at the end of the lane. They said she bore a secret as dark as the storm brewing above. Those who dared approach felt a chilling shiver race down their spines, as though the walls themselves were listening. When Clara Sullivan first laid eyes on the old house, she had felt a wave of dread wash over her. Windows shattered, shutters flapping wildly against the peeling paint, it looked as if it was guarding something forbidden. The townsfolk claimed that beneath the rusted roof, echoes of laughter mingled with haunting cries, leaving behind an unsettling resonance. And at the center of it all was Mary, the widow known for her piercing gaze that seemed to hold the weight of lost souls. Yes, Clara had felt it too, the pull, the eerie allure of Mary's story. It was a mystery wrapped in shadows, and she couldn't resist it any longer. As she set foot onto the path leading to the house, something stirred within. The air crackled with energy, sparking questions that danced through her mind. What did Mary hide behind those weary eyes? Why did she avoid the gaze of passers-by? The rumors only fueled Clara's curiosity. They said Mary had seen something unspeakable that night, the night her husband died in a terrible accident. The details were fuzzy but whispered like secrets in hushed tones. A flicker of anger, betrayal, madness, they were tossed around like wildflowers in a storm. Clara could feel her heart race as she neared the porch, feeling the weight of every word spoken about Mary. Without thinking, she raised her hand to knock. And then came the shattering silence, the kind that stretched so thin you could almost hear the town holding its breath. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash the like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Just as Clara knocked, the door creaked open, and there stood Mary, face pale as moonlight, eyes glimmering with a mix of trepidation and defiance. Clara's breath caught in her throat. There it was, the darkness that hung between them, thick and unyielding. Mary stepped aside, a shivering invitation, but the air felt heavy with unspoken words. What would it take to breach those walls? Mary began, her voice shaking like the leaves under an oncoming storm. I need you to help me, with something impossible. Clara's heart pounded. The request loomed, full of dread and wonder. What did Mary want? And why did it feel as if some greater truth was buried beneath the surface, waiting to blow the lid off everything they thought they understood? In that instant, beneath the heavy weight of urgency, Clara knew she was about to step into a realm of past regrets and sinister revelations. But the question echoed unrelenting in her mind: was she ready to dig into the heart of a mystery that could tear the town apart? Mary's voice hung in the air like smoke, curling around Clara with an intoxicating blend of fear and intrigue. She stepped into the threshold, the darkness inside pulling Clara in like a riptide, a whisper of forgotten memories enticing her further. Help me with what? Clara managed, her voice barely a whisper. She could feel the weight of the walls compressing, as though the house itself was desperate to keep its secrets buried. Mary took a step back, her eyes scanning the horizon, checking for unseen eyes, then she whispered, My husband didn't just die that night, he was murdered. The words crashed over Clara like thunder. It felt as if the world outside paused, holding its breath alongside her. Myriad emotions surged within her, fear clawing at her throat, disbelief numbing her limbs. Murdered? But how? Clara stammered, heart racing. The storm outside unleashed a sudden gust, causing the shutters to bang against the walls, fueling the tension inside the room. Why didn't you tell anyone? Why are you telling me? Mary's expression shifted, vulnerability giving way to a hardened resolve. Because no one will believe me. They think I'm just the grieving widow, a woman who lost her husband in an accident. They don't know what I saw that night, what I heard. Fingers trembling, Clara took a step closer, drawn into Mary's dark orbit. What did you see? The silence elongated, thick with fear and suspense. Mary's voice returned, barely above a whisper. I saw him with someone. And I heard them arguing. Her eyes darted to the side, as if shadowed figures lurked just beyond the door. Someone in Maple Creek wanted him dead. The words stung. Clara felt a knot form in her stomach. The calm facade of the town began to crack, just like the shutters clattering around them. Who? She breathed. Mary shook her head, a flicker of panic igniting. I can't say. Not yet. But I need you to help me find the truth. It's buried beneath all the lies. Someone is covering it up. She was shaking now, the vulnerability raw and palpable. What do you want me to do? Clara's voice trembled with uncertainty. Mary approached, eyes wide in earnest. Help me uncover who really killed him. Help me seek justice. Clara hesitated. The thought of tangling herself into a web of conspiracy and danger was daunting. But something deep within her soul stirred a fierce sense of justice, a pulse of bravery igniting hope. Okay, she whispered finally, her heart racing with a mix of dread and determination. What is the first step? With a glimmer of gratitude flashing across her features, Mary clasped Clara's hand, their fingers entwining tightly, a bond forged between secrets and shadows. We need to gather evidence before they shut me down for good. Suddenly, the house creaked ominously, the wind howled, and the shadows danced along the somber walls. The weight of their secret pressed down like an iron cage, and Clara felt a shiver crawl up her spine. She knew, without a doubt, that they were being watched. Just then, they heard it, a faint sound, like a whisper, barely audible but chilling, creeping through the crack in the door. Someone's here. Clara's breath hitched, panic swarming. Who was lurking in the shadows? What did they want? As her heart pounded like a drum, she felt a chilling truth settle in. This was only the beginning. With dark forces gathering around them, the deepest secrets of Maple Creek were ready to unravel. Clara had stepped into a storm far more perilous than she had ever imagined. But one thought echoed louder than the rest: who would survive in the heart of this burgeoning chaos? The wind howled through the crevices, a low growl that sent shivers shooting up Clara's spine. She pressed her back against the wall, her fingers tightening around Mary's as they both leaned toward the door, breath held tight like a fragile secret. Did you hear that? Clara murmured, her voice trembling. Mary nodded, her eyes wide with terror as she strained to listen through the storm's cacophony. Footsteps, heavy and deliberate, crunched against the gravel outside. Each sound echoed louder in Clara's ears. Whoever it was, they weren't just passing by. Do you think it's the police? Clara whispered, doubt mingling with fear. Mary shook her head sharply. I don't know. If they find me here, it's over. They will say I'm just a crazy woman. We have to hide. A sense of urgency sparked within Clara. They were caught in a net of shadows, and the hunters were near. She pulled Mary deeper into the dimness of the room, stepping back as the door rattled. Clara's heart raced, panic clawing at her throat. What if it's someone who knows? Mary's grip on her hand tightened, unyielding. Then we'll fight. We have to see this through. The footsteps outside faded for a moment, leaving a thick silence that hung heavily in the air. Clara dared a glance out the window. The storm had turned the street into a roiling black river, and shadows danced under wavering light. Her pulse raced, the sense of impending doom pressing down on her chest. Suddenly, the doorknob rattled violently, sending jolts of adrenaline coursing through Clara. Mary's breath quickened, her body tensing beside her. Go, Mary hissed, pointing to a narrow door that led to the cellar. We can hide there for now. Without questioning it, Clara nodded and they stumbled toward the small door, desperate to evade whatever threatened their fragile safety. They slipped inside, and Mary pulled it shut, plunging them into darkness. The cold, damp air wrapped around them like a shroud. As they crouched, barely breathing, Clara's mind raced. What are we going to do if they find us? She asked, each word choked with fear, and Mary's voice, soft but resolute, sliced through the quiet. We have to gather the proof I have before it's too late. If they can silence me, her words faltered, the weight of the truth pressing down on them both. Clara felt trapped, foreboding wrapping around her like fog. What proof? You have evidence? Mary shifted slightly, her breath shaky. I took a photo of the argument. Didn't he go alone? There were two people, someone from town and someone else. Clara's mind whirred. If we can just get to that photo, we can. But the sound of footsteps returned, the door creaking as it trembled again. A muffled voice floated through the wood, one Clara didn't recognize. Mary, the first, know you're in there. We just want to talk. Her heart plummeted. The voice was too familiar. Clara barely registered the fear that coursed through her veins. It was Mayor Thompson. His calm tone belied the danger behind it. Please, let us not make this harder than it has to be. Panic surged. Mary, what do we do? Clara whispered, looking into the darkness and seeing only Mary's wide eyes staring back. There was no way to go but deeper into the shadows of the cellar, but Clara felt her lungs constricting. What lies lived in this darkness? As the mayoress' voice continued to plead, the very fabric of Clara's mind began to churn. Trust was fragile, truth was dangerous. He can't know, Mary whispered, clinging tightly to Clara's arm, but Clara's thoughts raced ahead. She had to think, she had to act. Mary, she whispered urgently, could you recognize that man if you saw him again? The answer came like a slap. I don't know. I didn't see his face clearly. Their breaths mingled with the darkness, the space closing in like a vice. Outside, the storm rattled the world, but within the cellar, it was absolute silence, a deafening void filled with dread. As footsteps grew louder, Clara's heart raced. The truth lingered like poison, and she felt the weight of it crush her. We need to escape. Would they remain trapped in Maple Creek's secrets? What awaited them when they finally uncovered the shattering truth? The pressure of the dark seemed to thicken as the footsteps came ever closer. Each step echoed ominously, like the tolling of a funeral bell. Clara could feel the damp air pulling at her lungs, each breath becoming a desperate gasp. Mary's breath was hot against her ear. If he finds us, it's not just me who'll pay. You have to promise. I know, Clara interrupted, her voice barely above a whisper. Her heart thudded violently in her chest, reverberating against the stone walls. I won't let anything happen to you. But her resolve felt flimsy, like paper in the storm. The mayoress' voice broke through the tension, smooth and coaxing, but Clara recognized the undercurrent of menace beneath it. Mary, we've been friends for years, he said, his tone almost gentle. Let us talk about this. You can't hide forever. You must understand the trouble you're in. Clara's breathing froze. The underlying threat in his voice sent icy fingers creeping up her spine. She craned her neck toward the door, every instinct urging her to stay silent, to remain still. Mary gripped Clara's hand tightly, her face suddenly resolute. He's lying. We can't trust him. Why wouldn't he want to help you? Clara asked, her words catching in her throat as another loud rattle echoed through the cellar. Because he's part of it. Mary snapped, the raw edge to her voice brimming with fear and conviction. He's involved, Clara. He wants to bury the truth just like the others. The weight of those words hung like a heavy cloak around them, each syllable striking deeper. Clara felt a flicker of defiance ignite within her, but it mingled with an overwhelming fear of what lay ahead. But we have to get out of here. We can't simply sit in the dark waiting for him to break through. Mary looked deeply into Clara's eyes. There's a way out, a vent that leads outside. But it's narrow, and you may have to squeeze through. What if he hears? Clara whispered, panic rising once again. I'll make noise enough that he'll focus on me, Mary replied, determination burning bright. You have to get the photo, find a way to warn everyone in town. Clara hesitated. What about you? Trust me, just go. Mary whispered fiercely, squeezing her hand one last time. You know what's at stake. Every fiber of Clara's being screamed against the plan, but she realized Mary was right. They had to try something, anything. Gathering her resolve, Clara nodded, her heart pounding in time with the approaching footsteps. Mary turned toward the other side of the cellar, her voice lowering to an urgent whisper. Now! Quickly! Climb the crate and look for the vent. I'll distract him. Clara stepped back, uncertainty washing over her. As Mary readied herself, Clara sprang onto the crate, her hands scrambling against splintered wood. The darkness seemed to close in, thick and heavy, but she could see a faint outline of the vent high up against the wall. In that split second, the cellar door creaked open, a beam of light slicing through the shadows. Clara's heart lurched in her chest. The mayor stepped inside, his figure stark against the madness of the storm outside, moonlight glinting off his eyes. "You think you can hide from the truth forever, Mary?" He called into the darkness, a chilling smile creeping onto his lips. Clara's breath caught in her throat. Time seemed to stop as the danger intensified. She knew they were out of options. The looming abyss of the unknown called to her, pulling her away from safety. "Mary!" Clara shouted, panic spilling over as she began to make a desperate scramble for the opening. The shadows seemed to thicken around her as she fought to reach the vent. But then, amid the chaos, she caught sight of the mayor's cold gaze fixed directly on her. "Going somewhere?" he said, voice dripping with malice, sending chills racing down Clara's spine. Was this their end? What horrors lay waiting behind the light? Clara's heart raced as she felt her grip on hope begin to slip. The air thickened with dread as Clara's pulse quickened, a wild animal trapped in the corner. The mayor's eyes, sharp and predatory, locked onto hers, illuminating the shadows of her fears. Mary, already gripping her makeshift weapon, a broken piece of wood, stepped forward defiantly. "Stay back!" Mary shouted, her voice fierce, cutting through the darkness like a knife. "You won't touch us!" The mayor laughed softly, an unsettling sound that echoed within the confines of the cellar. "Oh, Mary, you misunderstand. I don't want to hurt you, yet." His gaze flickered towards Clara, an ominous grin splitting his face. "But her? Well, that's a different story." Clara's heart threatened to burst free from her chest, each beat a desperate plea for escape. She could feel the damp stone wall pressing against her back, but there was nowhere to go. She had to move. The vent was her only option, but it felt impossibly out of reach, the distance taunting her. "Mary, distract him," Clara begged, her voice barely traveling above the storm outside. With a sudden fierce resolve, Mary charged at the mayor, shouting words Clara couldn't quite catch. The man's attention shifted. Clara could see the way he turned, his focus momentarily losing its grip on her. This was her chance, summoning strength she didn't know she had. She launched herself toward the vent, climbing over the crate. Her fingers scrambled, raw and desperate against the rough, cold surfaces. The vent was just above her, the metal gleaming, but she was trapped in the fear of it all. "Mary! Keep him busy!" Clara cried, even as she felt the scalding weight of eyes on her. Every moment stretched like a rubber band ready to snap. Mary hurled words like stones, fierce and striking. "You can't hide behind your power forever. The truth will come out." But she knew the mayor was not the type to let things go unnoticed. The air trembled with tension and uncertainty as Clara felt the weight of time slipping through her fingers. With a swift, frantic shove, Clara finally grasped the vent's edge, hoisting herself upward. The confines scraped against her body. Screams from Mary filled the cellar, blending with the sound of the storm booming outside. "Clara, go!" Mary's voice broke through, punctuated by the thud of something heavy hitting the ground. With a final push, Clara disappeared into the vent, wriggling through a narrow passage. Each inch felt like freedom, but now she could only hear muffled echoes of struggle below. Adrenaline surged in her veins, but her thoughts raced back to Mary. She squeezed her eyes shut for a second, willing the terrifying scene below her to fade. In a few moments, she could see the light at the end of the tunnel. Freedom was near, tantalizingly close. But just as she was about to reach it, an agonizing crash reverberated through the metal behind her. Paralyzed, she looked back, the reality of her choice crashing down on her. "Mary!" Clara shouted, panic twisting her insides. "Run! Please!" Mary's voice was strained, punctuated by another harsh sound of struggle. Clara's heart sank as the chilling realization washed over her. She had to emerge but couldn't leave her friend behind. Torn between loyalty and the instinct to survive, she hesitated at the threshold of escape. Would she be able to save Mary? Or would her choice seal their fates? The sound of heavy footsteps reverberated loudly, moving closer, and Clara clenched her teeth. Time was running out. Suddenly, the mayoress' voice rang out again, smooth but laced with danger. "Clara, you're about to find out just how much you can trust her." Her breath caught. What did he know? What had Mary hidden? The shadows twisted around her with menacing intent. Clara could either plunge into the light or crawl back to her friend, risking everything for the truth. But could she really face the truth waiting for her beyond the vent? Clara's heart pounded even louder in her ears as she weighed her options. The terror that engulfed her felt almost physical. The thought of turning back seemed reckless, yet how could she abandon Mary? The muffled sounds of the struggle below pulsed like a war drum, echoing her indecision. With shaking hands, she pushed against the cold metal of the vent, straining every muscle just to keep herself steady. The light at the end flickered, teasing her with the promise of safety. But was it truly safe? The mayoress' words gnawed at her mind. You're about to find out just how much you can trust her. What truths lay in that dark abyss shared between her friend and their tormentor? A deep, painful shout from Mary forced Clara to take a deep breath. I can't go back. I have to save myself. She whispered fiercely to herself, pushing down guilt as she edged closer to freedom. The footsteps grew louder below, the weight of the mayor's power looming like a storm cloud that threatened to break. Clara forced herself to look away from the vent's exit, unwilling to witness the nightmare unfolding beneath her. She could only hear Mary's grunts, the crack of wood, then silence, as if the very air had thickened with dread. No! Clara screamed, desperation bubbling over like a wellspring of fear and frustration. The grim certainty was that something terrible was happening, and it involved her best friend. She studied her surroundings hastily, searching for anything, any tool, any weapon, anything to aid in rescuing Mary. But the vent was barely wide enough for her body, leaving no room for sufficient movement. Think, Clara. Think. She urged herself, heart racing. Then, almost instinctively, she pushed herself through the last few feet of the vent, casting eyes back toward the monochrome shadows of the cellar. The world snapped back into focus as she landed unceremoniously on the hard ground. Dust filled the air, forcing her to cough. The storm raged on outside, yet this place was eerily still. As she cleared her head, her eyes adjusted to the darkness. In the far corner of the cellar, the old wooden door lay ajar, a potential exit. She stepped cautiously forward, looking for signs of life. Mary, she called, her voice trembling but resolute. A low, pained groan replied. Clara's heart dropped like a stone in water. It was close. She pressed forward, peering past shelves stuffed with old boxes and forgotten supplies. The air was thick, pregnant with dread. What awaited her? And then she saw it. In the shadowy flicker of a lantern, Mary was crumpled on the floor, hands bound tightly with rope. The mayor stood over her, his figure cloaked in darkness, a malignant silhouette bursting with confidence. Clara's breath quickened again, each inhale feeling like shards of ice. Look who's finally decided to show up, the mayor taunted, voice dripping with venom. Now you can watch as I teach Mary a lesson. Mary's gaze flared with anguish, locking with Clara's for just a split second. It was a cry for help wrapped in unspoken words. Clara's stomach twisted. Time slowed, each tick of the clock echoing the gravity of the moment like a funeral dirge. Don't you dare! Clara shouted, stepping forward defiantly. Power surged through her, fueled by a bond forged in years of friendship. She could not cower. But as she reached for anything that could be used as a weapon, a bottle, a piece of metal, she felt a tremor beneath her feet. The storm outside roared, and with it, the earthen walls moaned ominously. Clara, stay back! Mary screamed, panic flooding her voice. It's too late. What did you do? Clara asked, eyes darting toward the mayor, who simply smiled, satisfaction glowing in his dark eyes. As the very ground beneath them shook, Clara realized the truth now lay exposed before her. The mayor was not alone. Storm clouds, both literal and figurative, were gathering, and one way or another, this confrontation would expose far more than just their hidden fears. But before Clara could even reconcile what was truly at stake, a broken pipe overhead burst, sending water and debris cascading down around them. With instincts screaming to survive, Clara faced the chaos, the stakes raised higher than ever. Freedom and loyalty collided in a fury, and the moment had arrived. Did she have enough strength left to confront the mayor and save Mary before everything collapsed around them? Would their secrets burst wide open, revealing more than any of them were prepared to face? Water poured down like a torrential rain, drenching Clara in seconds. The sudden rush knocked her to the ground. Panic wrapped around her throat like a vice. She scrambled to get back up, her mind racing. Focus, Clara. What do I do? Mary cried out again, the sound cutting through the chaos. The ropes binding her wrists were digging in, leaving angry red marks. The mayor turned, his face twisted with cruel amusement. Such drama. But it'll be over soon, my dear Clara. Clara's fight-or-flight instinct took over, forcing her to her feet. The mayor had his back turned, focused on Mary, and it was her chance. She lunged for a heavy piece of metal lying in a puddle, an iron rod. The weight felt familiar, grounding her in the moment. Let her go! Clara screamed. The mayor turned, surprise flaring in his eyes, quickly replaced with rage. You think you can stop me? You're nothing but a little girl playing hero. His voice dripped with venom, provoking the primal fear swirling in Clara's gut. But this was more than a fight, it was a reckoning. Maybe, but I'm not backing down. Adrenaline coursed through her veins as the mayor took a threatening step forward. The torrent continued to rain down, and the ground vibrated ominously. Behind them, the old wooden shelves creaked under the pressure, sending vibrations that felt like an earthquake. With a surprising roar of courage, Clara charged, swinging the iron rod toward him. He dodged, but just barely. The rod crashed against the wall, sending splinters flying. You've got spirit, I'll give you that, he sneered, readying himself for another attack. Desperation surged through her. Clara had to act faster, had to think smarter. She glanced at Mary, whose terrified eyes mirrored her own determination. With a surge of hope, Clara shouted, Mary! Can you reach the lantern? Mary's body strained against her bindings, but she nodded resolutely. Try. Distract him, Clara. Clara knew what she had to do. Gathering every ounce of courage, she lunged forward again, pretending to aim at the mayor's head. He swatted at her feebly, but she ducked low, racing toward Mary. The mayor was trying to follow her movement, but it was too late, she was already at Mary's feet. Just a little more. Clara encouraged, grabbing the rope binding Mary's wrists. She tugged frantically at the knots, heart pounding. If she could just get Mary free. Stop. You're making this worse for yourself. The mayor roared, lunging at her, but Clara was too quick. With a final desperate pull, the rope snapped, and Mary was free. Now! Mary shouted, pushing herself up with newfound strength. She reached for the lantern, fumbled for a moment, and then snatched it from the ground. With a swift motion, she tossed it toward Clara. Use it! Clara caught it, a rush of heat burning in her chest as she realized the weight of the glass lantern in her hands. Get back! She yelled, lifting it high. The mayor glared, but Clara could see uncertainty in his eyes now. Their roles had shifted, she was no longer the scared girl behind the vent. Don't think I want to do it, Clara threatened, the fear transforming into a protective rage. The room was on the precipice of chaos, the walls trembled, and the storm raged. Then, something shattered within Clara, the full weight of her resolve pouring out. You don't scare me. You have no hold over us anymore. Before she could think, she swung the lantern toward the floor. Glass exploded, shards scattering across the ground like stars. The flicker of flame caught hold of the debris, igniting in an instant. Let us see how tough you really are. Clara shouted, the blaze reflecting in her eyes. The mayor recoiled, hands rising in a futile gesture to protect himself. The fire danced wildly, filling the room with a blazing light that made Clara feel alive. But as heat escalated around them, she realized the greater danger. The flames were spreading. Could they all make it out of here alive? Clara, we need to go. Mary shouted, urgency in her voice, as the fire rapidly consumed the wooden shelves and spread to the walls. Not without you. Clara shouted back, fear gripping her heart. The basement was no longer just their battlefield, it was a death trap. Clara had to make a choice: fight or flight. The shattered lantern was a spark for more than just fire, it had ignited something powerful within her. Now time was running out, and Clara knew one thing for sure: she would not leave Mary behind. But as they darted toward the door, the mayor surged forward, eyes wild. You can't escape me. With the flames licking at their heels, Clara felt the raw weight of the moment close in. Could they outsmart him and escape? The end was burning bright, but the question loomed: would they get trapped in the flames of their past, or would they escape into the unknown? The air crackled with heat as Clara and Mary raced toward the door, the mayor hot on their heels. The flames roared like a wild animal, swallowing everything in their path, turning the basement into a furnace. Each step felt heavier, the heat threatening to drag them back into chaos. Clara, hurry! Mary urged, her voice laced with a mix of fear and determination. Clara could see the flickering shadows of the fire weaving through the chaos, painting their way to freedom. Almost there! Clara shouted, but she could feel the sting of smoke in her lungs, the sweet, sickening scent of burning wood mixing with her rising panic. They were so close yet so far, with the mayoress figure looming dangerously between them and escape. You won't escape me, none of you will. The mayoress' voice thundered against the flames. He charged forward, eyes wild, a beast desperate and cornered. Clara could see his twisted smile, a mask slipping away, revealing the monster beneath. In that moment, desperation fueled Clara. She grabbed Mary's wrist, pulling her close. Into the fire, she whispered, realizing they might only survive by going where no one expected them. Trust me. With no time to waste, Clara turned sharply, dragging Mary in the opposite direction. They dove behind a support beam just as the mayor lunged, crashing against the wall in an attempt to intercept them. The noise reverberated through the space, mingling with the crackling flames. Clara pressed her back against the cool wood, heart racing, wild thoughts colliding in her mind. We can't go back now. We need to outsmart him. Mary, breathing heavily, nodded with conviction. Yes. There has to be another way out. She scanned the room, eyes darting like little sparks. The window. We have to break it. Clara followed Mary's gaze, catching sight of the small, grimy window near the ceiling, mostly obscured by shadows and smoke. You can't be serious, it's too far up. We don't have a choice. Mary insisted, determination hardening her voice. Clara could see her resolve growing despite her fear. With all their strength, they had to risk everything. As the mayor wheeled around, his sight scanning every corner, Clara noticed the flames curling dangerously close to the rotting wood of the shelves. The entire building felt like it could collapse at any moment. On 3. Clara said, setting her jaw. 1, 2, 3. With a surge of adrenaline, they sprinted toward the wall, Clara reaching for the base of a rickety shelf. Boost me! She cried, locking eyes with Mary. Together, they acted like a well-orchestrated team, employing every ounce of desperation. Clara pushed off the shelf, Mary's hands lifting her up. She reached for the window ledge, finger grazing the cracked glass, but then an explosion rocked the room. A nearby shelf collapsed as fire consumed it. Clara gasped, pulling herself away from the flames' heat as shards from the explosion scattered. We have to go now. She screamed, adrenaline blending with fear, their only hope hanging by a thread. Suddenly, the mayor roared behind them, his fury rising above the crackling fire. You think you can escape? I won't let you. Panic boiled in Clara's gut, but Mary's grip was ironclad, holding on tight. Clara! That rope you used to free me. It might be strong enough to climb. Clara's heart raced like the ticking clock of their survival. But we have to time it perfectly. She glanced at the mayor, whose eyes were crazed with madness. Every fiber of her being screamed to act. Do it! Clara shouted, hurling the last of her strength into this final stand. The world spun, flames illuminating the dark, and in that heated moment, they needed to leap into the unknown. Would they find safety on the other side, or would they be consumed by darkness? Clara had to make the hardest choice of her life: risk everything to survive or surrender to the chaos. As they grappled with the decision, the ever-growing roar of flames filled their ears, a reminder that time was slipping through their fingers. But just then, a new sound emerged, crackling laughter that chilled Clara's spine. "We LLC who escapes and who burns alive," the mayor sneered, a cruel specter in the flames. The room shook, and in that moment of chaos, it became clear, Clara and Mary were facing more than fire. They were facing a reckoning. Who would emerge unscathed from this inferno? Clara's heart pounded like a drum in her chest. She and Mary exchanged frantic glances, their breaths shallow and panicked. The fire crackled menacingly, disrespecting the world around it as the mayoress' laughter wove through the chaos. "You don't know who you're dealing with," he barked, spitting the words like venom. "Clara, this is insane," Mary cried, her voice trembling. "We can't let him corner us." "Then let us give him a taste of what he is missing." Clara snapped back, determination blazing in her eyes. They both turned toward the dark mass of flames ripping through the air like serpents. If they had a chance, it was now. "All right, Mary, we can't hesitate any longer." Clara pointed toward the shelves that were beginning to smolder, their walls buckling under the relentless heat. "Climb. We can use the shelves as a makeshift ladder." But the mayor surged toward them, desperate to retain control. "Fleeing only makes this more entertaining for me." His voice echoed, winding around them like a creeping fog. He lunged forward, arms reaching, desperation in his eyes. Mary gasped at the sight, and Clara felt a rush of heat and panic. "Now, Mary!" They bent low and dashed toward the shelves. Flames licked at their feet as the inferno expanded, gripping the basement with more ferocity. Clara hoisted Mary onto the first shelf, then scrambled up after her, the heat blistering against her skin. Their ascent was stunted as the mayoress' shadow cast over them. "You really think you're clever?" His mocking tone was underscored by the sound of collapsing wood and crackling heat. Clara spotted a shattered beam precariously hanging over the mayor. If they could dislodge it, she nudged Mary. "Hold on, I have an idea." Without waiting for a response, she scrambled higher and reached for the beam. The wood was hot, searing her fingers. Sweat rolled down her brow as she pulled with everything she had. The mayor, sensing the danger, took a step back, watching in rage. "Don't underestimate me," he shouted, but Clara pressed on, adrenaline flooding her veins as she finally managed to loosen the beam. It teetered on the edge. "Now, Mary!" Clara screamed. With a swift shove, the beam fell, crashing down onto the floor right beside the mayor, exploding into a flurry of flames and splintered wood. He roared in shock, stumbling back just enough to create space. "Go, go!" Clara urged. They resumed their climb as the basement erupted in chaos. Clara felt her heart leap as they neared the window. Almost there. But the mayor was not finished. He twisted around, rage contorting his features. "You think this changes anything? You'll still burn for your betrayal." His laughter turned into a snarl as he lunged, determined to drag them back down into the flames. Fear surged through Clara as they reached the rough edge of the window. "Mary, climb up." Just then, a crash erupted behind them. An entire rack of shelves came tumbling down, uprooted by the fire's insatiable hunger. The heat intensified, enveloping them in a shroud of desperate smoke. With one last burst of energy, Clara reached for the ledge. "I'll go first." Using every ounce of will, she pulled herself up, her fingers barely catching the edge as she struggled to roll into the open air. "Clara!" Mary cried, the sound of her panic ringing clear. Above them, the mayor's furious voice filled the air. "I will find you. You can't hide forever." Clara couldn't waste a breath. With a rush of instinct, she reached back for Mary, pulling her up just as the ceiling caved in behind them, flames raging with fierce hunger. "Let us move." Clara panted, adrenaline still racing as they flung themselves out of the window, landing hard on the ground below, but before they could catch their breath, they heard a familiar voice piercing the thick smoke. "Clara! Where are you?" It was Jake. They turned toward the sound, desperation flooding their senses. "What do we do now?" Mary whispered, wide-eyed and shaken. They were safe, yet their fight was far from over. The mayor still lurked, vengeful, and ready to finish what he started, before Clara could answer. The air shifted, and a shadow fell over them. Guess who's back? A chill went down Clara's spine. The worst was yet to come. The darkness was thick, suffocating, as Clara and Mary lay hidden in the tall grass just beyond the old house's foundation. The fire behind them grew louder, crackling wildly, but in the distance, another sound had emerged. Jake's voice, calling frantically from the road. Clara! Mary! Are you there? He sounded closer now, nearing the looming chaos that the mayor had woven around them. Clara clenched her fist, a mix of determination and terror coursing through her veins. They had escaped, but at what cost? Mary's face, streaked with charcoal and fear, mirrored her own dread. As the situation hung precariously, with the mayor's shadow still looming, they had to act. Stay low, Clara murmured, both a warning and a promise. They crawled forward silently, hearts pounding, each whisper of the grass beneath them offering a fragile hope for freedom. The house erupted again with a roar, flames consuming the darkened interior like a monstrous beast. Clara felt it in her chest, the urgency, the rush to save Mary, and the burden of knowing they couldn't rest until the mayor was brought to justice. Suddenly Ellen, the rancher's daughter, appeared at the edge of the yard by the fence. Clara had seen her a few times before at town events, her bright, hopeful spirit grounding Clara in an overwhelming situation. Clara! Mary! Get over here! She shouted, waving her arms in a frantic gesture to guide them. The prompt reassured Clara, her heart igniting with a pulse of hope as they darted toward her. Just as they reached the fence, Clara saw a shadow moving through the line of trees at the edge of the property. It was the mayor. His silhouette was unmistakable, shoulders taut, eyes fixed on the flames. He wasn't done yet. Run! Clara shouted, pulling Mary along as they ducked low behind Ellen's house. They could hear the mayor's voice bellowing into the wind, filled with anger and threats. You can't escape. I know what the two of you did. They pressed into the thick brush, panting as Clara gripped Mary's shoulder. We need to alert the whole town. Listen, they have to. Ellen nodded, breathless. I saw everyone gathering down at the park for the 4th of July celebration. They won't let him get away with this. Then, suddenly, another booming voice emerged from the chaos. Jake burst through the bushes, catching sight of Clara. There you are. I thought I'd lost you both. Relief washed over him, but it was short-lived. Jake, we need to warn them. The mayor. Clara started, her voice urgent. He's a monster. I know. I saw him at the bar the other night, threatening people who dared to talk about your husband. This is bigger than we thought. Jake breathed heavily, determination firm in his eyes. Let us go. The three of them sped through the tall grass, urgency fueling their flight as they approached the park. The gathering was lively, filled with families celebrating and unaware of the danger creeping towards them. Listen! Clara shouted as they reached the edge of the crowd. She steeled herself, adrenaline pumping, fear evaporating into a forceful sense of realization. Everyone! We need your help. The mayor isn't who you think he is. Murmurs spread through the crowd, heads turning as Clara pressed on. Mary's husband didn't die in an accident. He was murdered, and the mayor is involved. She could feel the weight of their eyes on her, but then she noticed a shift. Fear transformed into realization, and anger simmered. What is she saying? Someone called out, a little girl clinging to her mother, wide-eyed and confused. No! This is nonsense! A voice rang out, but Clara didn't falter. Open your eyes. We're fighting for our town, for our lives. He has been lying to you. The energy shifted as Clara pointed toward the smoke rising, the sound of sirens beginning to sing in the distance. She felt the collective breath of the crowd holding tight, uncertainty mixed with dread. Then, from the edge of the park, a new sound joined their chorus, the unmistakable roar of a vehicle speeding down the path. Clara turned to see the sheriff barreling forth, sirens blaring. Other officers trailing behind him. Now! Clara shouted, directing everyone's energy toward the impending confrontation. Just as the sheriff stepped out, the mayor's voice echoed from behind them, full of confidence. You think they can keep you safe? You're all fools. The sheriff stepped forward, eyes narrowing as he locked onto the mayor. "Step back, Thompson. You're under arrest for murder and conspiracy." Shock rippled through the gathering, murmurs of disbelief turned to rage. Some of the townsfolk brandished makeshift weapons, confrontational, emboldened by the dynamic shift. The mayor stumbled, eyes dancing across the crowd, calculating. "You're making a mistake." Yet as the officers moved forward, Clara felt her heart race, a knot tightening in her chest. "He's using fear to control us," she cried out, determination lighting her voice. "But together, we can break free." The crowd surged forward, anger spilling onto the surface. "Get him!" echoed through the air, frustration shifting into a united roar. The mayor's facade crumbled as his true self emerged, a desperate man grasping at straws. He lunged at the sheriff but was quickly apprehended, pinned down by law enforcement, outmaneuvered by the very townsfolk he thought would stand behind him. The atmosphere shifted, jubilation rising like steam, warming the night air. They cried out in celebration. At long last, they were free of his grasp. It was over, a fierce battle fought, not in shadows but in the light of truth rising amid the flames. Clara's heart soared. They had weathered the storm. As the crowd cheered around them, Clara turned to Mary, eyes bright with gratitude and relief. "It's done," she whispered, feeling the weight of an oppressive silence that the town had lived under shatter into echoes of laughter. Mary's eyes shimmered with tears as she stepped forward. "Thank you, Clara. You stood by me, and somehow, together, we made it." "I couldn't have done it without you," Clara replied, feeling the warmth of camaraderie envelop them both. "I can't believe he has finally gone," Ellen exhaled, her voice trembling with disbelief and relief. The night sky brightened with fireworks, scattering brightly across the horizon as Clara joined her friends among the crowd. Hope flickered in the air, the future opened before them, wide and inviting. As the festivities unfolded, Clara knew they wouldn't forget the fight or the pain that forged them together. Maple Creek had reclaimed its heart, ready to heal beneath its bruised surface, and there, surrounded by friends, Clara believed they could rebuild. Beyond the shadows, life awaited, a vibrant tapestry woven from their experiences, a testament to their resolve. They were survivors against all odds, and together they would rise again. With determination, Clara lifted her chin, knowing they would face whatever came next, side by side guiding each other through the darkness toward a new dawn. And now, as their laughter mingled amid the fireworks illuminating the night sky, a part of Clara silently vowed, this moment, this victory, was just the beginning. And speaking of beginnings, if you've made it this far, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to catch the next exclusive stories coming your way. Don't wait even one more second to share this journey with your friends. Smash that like button now, it helps feed the algorithm and supports our growing community. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories, your voice matters. You need to be part of this amazing adventure. Let us keep this momentum going.